Okay, so the Haiti, that first section, right? I think one way to do the first section, one is to directly read about and know the what happened in Haiti at that time. And you guys have already done a little bit of CLR James, Black Jacobins, right? So you already know some of the what unfolded at that time. And one of the things that I was telling you earlier also, when I had that one class with you earlier for this course, is that unlike the 1790s period of Haiti, when the slave rebel leaders were influenced by French thought and Enlightenment thought. I mean, they were very radical, of course. So you have Dessalines, you have, what's that guy called? Toussaint. Yeah, Toussaint. So they are regarded as almost like the Malcolm X kind of thing, you know. Like Malcolm X has like Spartacus and then Marx. Karl Marx and then Spartacus. You go to antiquity, you know. So, so similarly you have Toussaint, and then, Malcolm X, and then Toussaint, Black Panther Party in the US, and then, of course, I'm not going into Martin Luther King and Gandhi, that's a different thing, that's also within the black, okay, whatever, radical tradition, radical peaceful tradition, maybe, what do you want to call it, what do you think of Martin Luther King? He's a very important figure. Where does your course offer him any space? So in any case, so Malcolm X and then maybe the revolutionaries of, and that was also a successful revolution, right, in 1790s, that led to the founding of the first slave republic, the first black independent republic in the post-colonial, well, that's not post-colonial, that's like in the colonial period, because that is 1790s, you can't even call it post-colonial, but maybe you can say at the height of colonialism, you have a successful slave republic when countries like India, the great Indian civilization was still not sure whether they should actually oppose colonialism. No, 1790, what were the Indians doing? They were pretty happy with the British, or the French. That time already the Haitians, the blacks, the slaves in the plantations, in the sugarcane plantations of Haiti are already rebelling, and they already made a republic. So in that sense, very advanced. I don't know why we don't teach Haiti, in history and political science, because that's a great thing, We talk about decolonize, and also, it kind of completely throws the decolonization narrative off the rails. Because decolonization, what do you say? 40s and then 50s and 60s, 70s. No, that's decolonization. Was there any country which was independent before India, 1947 se pehle? Maybe not, right? China is 1949, Sri Lanka is 48. So this is the decolonization, anti-colonial. And then you have subaltern studies, post-colonial studies, Walter Mignolo, Partha Chatterjee, blah, 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 anti-colonial. Edward Said writing his book in 1970s. But if you take the Haitian Revolution, there was already decolonization. Even before your Rajaram Mohan Roy was, I think, even born. Rajaram Mohan Roy is like the father of modern India, decolonization, not even decolonization, but he's fighting the Brahmins and, trying to reinterpret rights rights rule of law in the light of the Vedas, but also reinterpreting Vedas in the light of the Western discourse and rites and ban sati and all, right? But even before that, they see they're doing a revolution. Now the interesting thing is that we are going even before that. Already 1790s is like landmark, unprecedented, decolonization, before decolonization, but we are even going before that with Mackandal, right? Because Mackandal is like already, he was brought as a youth from Africa, and he organizes the slaves, and he then does this, founds he and his compatriots, he and his friends, fellow slaves. So what is happening is that you have a plantation, and these slaves, they flee the plantation. Once you flee the plantation, where do you go? Usually you go to the mountains, no? Whoever flees goes to the mountains. Apparently when the Muslims attacked Nalanda, let's face it, right? Muslims attacked Nalanda. Okay, put up with it. The Muslim invaders attacked Nalanda. The monks, the Buddhist monks, they fled where? Where did they flee? Mountains. Which mountains? Nepal, then? नेपाल के उधर क्या है याद नहीं आ रहा Tibet. I mean, you will flee all the way, no? I mean, it's a grand fleeing. It's not like one guy fleeing. So ultimately you go to the Trans-Himalayan. If you keep going, where do you reach? Trans-Himalayan. Like Himalayas, Nepal is in the Himalayas, then you go like that on the other side. That far. So all your Tibetan Mahayana Buddhism is also partly because of the monks who flee there. So, well, slaves, they are not like monks, they are not like highly educated philosophical prophetic monks, ordinary guys. So they flee and go into the mountains there. And in the mountains, so not just in Haiti, but also in Jamaica, in Guyana, all these countries. I mean, all these places that later became countries. West Indies, Caribbeans, there also we have history of these, what is called Maroon republics, which these slaves who have fled from the plantation. Plantation means they're also fleeing from the city, right? And they're going into the jungles, in the mountains. So there they come and they form a community there. And there they practice what they used to practice in Africa. So those communities are already there. This entire region, you will see Latin America, Africa, there is these kind of communities. Well, in India, you had maybe the fakirs and the sannyasis, they used to make those kind of communities, right? The sadhus and all. Or among Adivasis, you had those kind of communities. They're completely outside of this thing. So they do their own thing. But in this case, what happens is that those communities that are there, that have completely rejected this city, the plantation, they launch an attack on the city. And Mackandal is one of the leaders. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is that they know the plants very well. They know the soil very well. They know the flora and fauna very well. So they think, okay, how do we attack? How do we kill these white slave masters? Because they know the plants very well, they make poison out of it. Poison. So he is also regarded as the Lord of Poison, Mackandal. So he's a healer. So he's a healer. If you know the plant, then you know. If you get a cut, then you know what to put there. If you are unwell, what to put, which leaf to eat. Your jadi butti basically. Ayurveda, your plants and this thing, right? Like the Adivasis, no? How do the Adivasis do? How do the Maoists live in the forest like that? Okay, maybe they get an occasional doctor secretly. You have to get a doctor in secretly, all that is going on. But also they know their plants and their trees, and they know how to use that to cure themselves. So these communities in that sense are very, grounded with their scene. They are also doctors and healers, and they are self-sufficient, So, and then they launch a revolt. The revolt is successful, and they prepare poison. They kill all these guys in the plantation. But then that's over, And then much later you have what you have in the 1790s. But that remains as a major inspiration for these later French educated half slaves, because some of the slaves, they were like between, say, a white man and a slave woman, so they are the sons of that kind of a relationship. So some of them, hid in the ship and went to France, and they learned French, so they got some education. It's those kind of guys. So when the French Revolution is happening, they are there. Apparently Toussaint was there. So when all these Robespierre and all these Danton, Marat, all these guys, revolutionaries of France, the great revolutionaries of France. Like you see the Constituent Assembly debate, Ambedkar is debating with Gandhi and debating with Nehru. And then some little Adivasi guy is there in the corner, वो चाय देने गया था, सुन लिया है सब, चाय देने गया था अम्बेडकर को, कोने में बैठ के सब सुन लिया, अच्छा ये ऐसा बात कर रहा है, हमारा यहाँ वहाँ हेटी में तो कुछ नहीं, ये लोग दे रहा है लिबर्टी, इक्वालिटी, फ्रेटर्निटी. तो Toussaint was one of those guys. तो बोला कि अच्छा तुम लोग ऐसा बड़ा बड़ा बात कर लगा रहे हो, हाँ इक्वालिटी, फ्रेटर्निटी, हमारा साथ क्या हो रहा है? And a lot of it came into the discourse in Europe. The scholarly sections, the ruling classes, the literate people, the university professors, they knew what was going on in Haiti. That's where Hegel comes into the picture, right? Hegel is following the Haiti news in the newspapers, even though he's not even French. So it's not like these things are unreported. So Mackandal is reported. And what is going on in the colonies is very important for them. It's like, I think, how in Delhi you get reports from Northeast. Tripura mein there is a tribe. Tripuri or something, right? Something. What is that? Brew or some. Brew is the name of a coffee. There is a tribe in Tripura, no? Which had a recent Brew. Yeah. That's the way, So they're hearing. In Delhi, people are hearing. Okay, there's some Brew tribe. Some, we don't know. Maybe they eat dog. That's all we know. They just eat dog. All Northeast tribes eat dog. That much we know. But we know something. But people like, the philosophers and all, the writers, they're keeping track of the thing. What's going on in Haiti. So, now Toussaint and Dessalines, they are those kind of people. But your Mackandal is a wild guy. He doesn't know French and all. He's just African. He remembers his ancestors, his healers, his other gods, tree god, river god, mountain god, those kind of things he knows. He doesn't know liberty. But that's the thing. So on what basis did he do the rebellion? What was his consciousness? What was the concept moving him? That's where it becomes extremely interesting. It is like the difference again between, the anti-colonial movement here done by Bhagat Singh and whatever, Nehru and Gandhi, because they know colonialism, they know this, that, and then they are opposing it on the basis of political independence. that we can be, we can determine our own fate. They have the consciousness of the nation, of the global society, right? But a lot of, say, tribal revolts in India. They say that a lot of Adivasis, the way they rebelled in India, when they see a white man, they thought, oh, this is a devil. White man is a devil, just kill him. They were not thinking, oh, there is something called England. They have not even seen the world map, right? So they don't know there's something called England and they're like making an empire all over the world. They don't know that. And we are, demanding, fighting for independence, and there are so many other countries also that are fighting for independence, and we need to do solidarity with them. None of that. So they are fighting from their own, now you might say, primitive consciousness. No, but these are very loaded terms, you have to be very careful. Some primitive mentality, primitive consciousness. From that. So what is going on with Mackandal already at that time? So there are many things here. One way I think we can approach this is by making it talk to, okay, what have you read on, say, these kind of consciousnesses? For example, if you have seen Ranajit Guha's Elementary Aspects of Peasant Insurgency, then you have those things there. The pre-modern consciousness, let's call it. Primitive consciousness, primitive mentality, right? It's a bit like, that movie Apocalypto. Apocalypto, there's a movie, those just like wild guys there. They can even kill each other, do cannibalism. It's a different world there. Any references you have in your minds? Okay, head hunting among the Nagas. Why would they head hunt? What is the thing about the Nagas head hunting? Is it really true that they did head hunting, or it is just a colonial construct?
More of a colonial construct.
It's a colonial.
It's more of a colonial construct because.
No, don't say all this. More of a.
No, it is.
More of a means kya?
It is.
Leave out the colonial then. What is the other part? That means there is also a genuine part there.
Yes.
Okay, what is that? That's what we are trying to understand.
Hostility towards the people who are infringing in their people.
But they kill each other, no? Head hunting is a head hunting. They need some heads. It could be yours, it could be the white man's.
Sir, I think they do not distinguish between man and animal.
Oh, you see, that's one. Yes. This could be it. That in their consciousness is no distinction between man and animal. So, I kill a goat and kill, maybe I want to kill this fellow, next time. And I might also offer myself to be killed. So it could be that okay, they don't make a distinction between humans and animals. It's a continuum. Fluidity, non-binary perspective here. Gender fluidity, okay, human-animal fluidity. This could be one, and which is true. In fact, this kind of a substitutability. So, okay, we need to, that's also they say about how, they used to practice human sacrifice earlier, long time back, Vedic times it seems, and Buddha was against it. So they said, okay, stop. So all the sacrifices, like if you do sacrifice in front of Ma Kali, right? Goddess Kali. What's that? What's that? Right? She has to kill. And all her victims ka haath ko, she's made a dress for herself. This is real, right? This is Not some fantastic thing. This is what we practice. We are all animists here, by the way. We all practice this. There is a Kali Mata Mandir here. Millions of people worship Ma Kali in this country. What is that? The sacrifice is blood. She is a headhunter. Now, of course, it's another thing that today social science and all has made a discourse that these kind of things never become an object of study or research or teaching. We think we don't know what's crazy, we can't talk about that. Let's talk about the constitution or something, Right? It's very simple, nice, we feel modern and all. But these things are there. So, it could be that in their consciousness, like, why do we not get completely revolted seeing Goddess Kali? I've never seen any of you come and say, oh, you know what, I saw this picture, Gori picture, this woman, I don't know, they say it's a goddess, and like she's like having a garland of skulls here, and kate hue haath ke wo garments pehne hue hai, and these other people were worshipping her, I can't sleep tonight, I feel like puking. Do you ever say this? No. You should feel pukes, because you also have primitive consciousness. Because for you it's very fine, it's a goddess. We all have primitive consciousness in that sense. So we also have to put ourselves here. I'm sorry, discourse in political science you do, that doesn't change you a bit. You are that, I think, But it's, of course, we never come to that point. He's almost getting surprised. What is Sir saying today, So, that kind of a primitive consciousness which is there. I mean, okay, you can say, well, it's India, so we have all this primitive consciousness here. In Ambedkar, that becomes public morality. But even in Ambedkar, I was reading something about Ambedkar. I was like, okay, Ambedkar, of course, he also gets into the Buddhism and all. He calls it Navayana and all, but so what? It's after all. Buddhism, you can say, is a different kind of primitive consciousness, but still it is from back then, But when Ambedkar talks about the Nagvanshis, now in India, the Dalit Buddhists, Mahars, they say we are Nagvanshis. You see, you have to break this category of Dalit. Dalit is a sanitized term. It is like it is also like packaged food. But if you go to the actual Dalit practitioners, they will identify themselves as Mahars or monks. If you go to UP, they will not, this word to Dalit does not exist till recently. So they identify as Chamars, they identify as Khatiks, right? Tell me if I am wrong. Kinnar? Who is that community which got Lord Ram across the river? Kevats. Do you know how important was Kevat vote in the last UP elections? Then, Rajbhar, no? Rajbhar is Dalit. But Rajbhar is Rajbhar from, they say they are there in Mahabharata and Ramayana and what not.
Same with the Yadavs.
Yadavs, ye dekho. The Yadav pride.
Respect to Krishna.
Yeah, you see? So what is this Dalit OBC category? These are all fictitious categories, legal fictions. Doesn't exist. These are like अभी का बना है अभी. ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन 50 साल भी क्या 70 साल हुआ है. 70 साल पुराना चीज है. और वो 7000 साल पुराना चीज है. So all of this, when you put together, what do you get? Again, primitive categories. The Nagvanshis, the Nagas, the Ambedkar writes this. It's there in the Vedas. Vedas means like 3000 years ago. Forget about pre-modern, that is like pre-Buddhism, pre-Ashoka, pre-Jesus, pre-everything. Nagvanshis. And the Mahar leaders, if you listen to, even you go on YouTube, Mahar Nagvanshi you do, kitna hits you get. They say, we are the great Nagvanshis. Again, coming back to my Bhima Koregaon piece, when I was, one of the reasons why I got tickled to do that was because the Mahar Buddhists claim themselves to be Nagvanshis. So Mahar Siddhanak, one of the leader of the Mahar soldiers who fought against the Peshwai by being on the side of the British, being part of the British army in 1818, the Battle of Koregaon, Mahar Siddhanak. Siddhanak apparently is Naga, Nagvanshis, they all write Nak towards the end. So the majority of the Mahar soldiers, I think 90% or maybe 100%, all of them identify themselves as Nagas, Nagvanshis. They are the Mahars. So Mahars are saying they are Buddhists. You can even call them Neo-Buddhists because they are following Ambedkar's Navayana Buddhism. But they say that they have historically been Buddhist. They have always been Buddhist and they were forced to convert to Hinduism or become some kind, or just become an outcast. So those who were Buddhists, they were pushed into being outcasts and then they became Mahars and all of that. But originally they, even before Buddhism, they are the Nagvanshis. So those are all primitive things. Now, of course, Mackandal does not have that benefit because he's already displaced from one continent to the other. He's a new society, but he tries to carry on something from his African community, which is the really voodoo practices. The voodoo practices, right? That's one. The other thing is, so all of this will get very, very amorphous, ambiguous, this register on which I am telling you right now. So to kind of, because we are also part of a course here, so to kind of place it somewhere, the way I propose we will move in this is that we will look at this connection that Mackandal has with nature, with the flora and fauna, and how his power is the power of his surroundings. His power is his power because he is in such an intimate relation with the animals, with the plants, with the trees, with the flowers and fruits, the entire thing, and of which he is an embodiment, of which he and his friends are an embodiment. Right? So one way for us to do exactly this, but we need to find some props, to support us in this endeavor. Also because we are in a university curriculum here. So some props we will take from contemporary theorists, whom we would not want to think much about, whom we want to eventually abandon and cast away, like a snake, talking about Nagas. Like the snake apparently, throws its jacket every 6 months or 1 year. So we will eventually do that to these great theorists. But for the moment, we will very instrumentally use them instrumentally and opportunistically use them. And one theorist here that I propose we should use is Bruno Latour. The great Bruno Latour, because Latour, as you would know, talks about nature culture a lot.
We're going with actor network.
Yeah, we will not call it that. We will directly go to one of his writings. Yeah, it comes to actor network, it comes to object-oriented ontology, which is all the cutting-edge theories today, by the way. Very cutting edge, very, very fancy. If you want to show off, then Latour is good. You know? Oh, you haven't read Latour? Ah, okay. Ah, you're still reading Foucault? Foucault is dated now, you know. Latour, Bruno Latour. And what is that? Graham, right? Graham's object-oriented ontology. Triple O, object-oriented ontology. It's kind of interesting. I always make too many shortcuts, so I'll just share it with you and spoil things for you. What I think of when I hear Graham's object-oriented ontology, he's still alive, right? This is a big thing now in academia. I think of Internet of Things. You know the Internet of Things, where objects are also sentient. It's a bit like AI, right? Sentient. Like robot can also maybe, I don't know, feel pain or something. Sentient. So this is a sentient thing, right? It is sentient, it's recording, it can also talk. Hey Siri, I can do, right? So this Hey Siri, where the object world is also participating with us. So the question of agency, human agency. So agency is not just in humans but also objects. So human and non-human, object world. So we're always surrounded by objects. I take this phone and sleep like this. You know, this phone is a part of me. You know, this phone is like not just a thing. So this is one, me and this is one, okay? So it's not like subject, object, no. So what are these key guys proposing? They are saying human, non-human. Both have agency, it seems. If I lose my phone, I just cannot sleep. You know? And for me to have good sleep, I need this phone. It has a lot of agency. So they propose human, non-human. And then Latour would say that the nature culture, I never thought I'm going to discuss these things, nature culture. I never get into this nature culture thing, but but because of the great Mackandal, I am reminded of Latour. So the nature culture. So you say, okay, nature culture divide. This is familiar, right? Nature culture. So we all in nature, hunting, gathering, society, this, that, and the other, and then there's a social contract. Then there is law. You know, think about Hobbes and Rousseau. This, that. Today I was teaching in the class in the morning, and one of the students asked me a question, saying, "Sir, do you think Foucault is saying that we should go back to the state of nature?" I said, wow, good question. You were there. You know, nice question. Of course, that question, a bit of the ground was prepared for that question to come. So I won't give all credit to that student, because somebody had, I think, already asked, does Foucault say that, you know, he's talking about a society without a state? So you are in state of nature, you are in nature, and then culture happens. That means you have a lawful society, you have a sovereign to which everybody decides that it's in the interests of all to have a sovereign power who will, follow the law, right? So the kind of things you have in Hobbes and Locke and all of that. So from nature you come to culture. So the nature, culture, division. So from nature we come to culture. In India you can say that the nature culture happens in the Manusmriti, where Manu will say that, well, this is the dharma, right? This is the rule of law, which is the dharma for us here. And that is the dharma which would be applicable to all, and the class of Brahmins, they will be the defenders of the dharma for all, always, it's for all. Even the Shudra is subject to the dharma, right? And that's where you have made the final break away from nature to a higher level of existence, to civilization. You have ended the war of all against all. Now there is a king, there is a priest, there is dharma, there is rule of law, right? So that nature culture divide, Latour says, is an Enlightenment Western idea. And he says that if being modern is to be cultured and be civilized, and hence we have broken away from nature, right, and into science and future and into the higher and higher levels of civilization and AI and outer space and all that. Latour would challenge all of that and say that we can never say that you break from nature and then you enter culture. So he challenges the very notion of the nature culture divide, saying that so if being modern is really connected to the division between nature and culture, that the transition from nature to culture is being modern, if you define the modern in that sense, then Latour's answer is that, well, then in that case we have never been modern, because there is nothing called a nature culture divide. So either you can think in terms of hybridity, that there is always nature in any culture. So it's not like you can say we have come out of nature into culture. So you can say it's hybrid and all of that. So so I'll give you an essay by Latour to kind of cover this. His major work is We Have Never Been Modern. But as you know, I avoid long readings, also because I don't know whether you guys will even read it. But there is this one piece which is very precise, concise, very sharp, very polemical, by Latour himself. So we'll do just this one reading. So we will look at this, whatever their approach is called. Saloni tells us it's actor network theory. Okay, could be. I heard it's object-oriented ontology. But object-oriented ontology from Graham, I think, as a critique of Latour, whatever be it, this way of looking at nature culture hybridity, you might say. So we'll read this essay, and we will then approach Mackandal, and not just Mackandal. I will also sneak in one more thing from the Indian context, right? So we will unlike most people, we will approach Latour, as I told you, finally to again abandon him. So we are using Latour as just a prop. But this is an amazing essay though, it's an amazing essay. I mean, I love Latour's work, that's a different thing. And the others like Latour also. But I think he's particularly good. Also, I like the kind of work which does anthropology of science, which does an ethnography of scientists and science, which is bit what Foucault is doing, what Bachelard is doing, or even this guy who wrote the Structure of Scientific Revolution, Thomas Kuhn is doing, right? So trying to, like the way people go and study tribes and all their supposedly mysterious practices, similarly you also treat science as some kind of mysterious, superstitious practice, What are the scientists doing? What do you think they're doing? And just like anthropologize them, exoticize them. Oh, how cute, you guys do these little experiments, okay. Can I take a picture of you doing these experiments? Because it feels like some tribal practice you guys are doing, some animism, some, some healing or, those kind of shamanic practices. So these Boyle's law and Newton's law, these are like these mantras you chant, Einstein's theory of relativity is another, some Puranic story or something, some Bhagavad Gita kind of thing for the scientists, like that. So trying to relativize science. I mean, okay, if you look at the larger thing, they'll say, okay, that's postmodernism, blah, blah, blah. But forget about that, don't go after broad labels, because you don't get much out of that. So Latour, I like Latour is interesting because he also does that. He looks at science and he does ethnography of science. And one shouldn't be fearful, oh my God, that will lead to science and rationality and reason being dislodged, and it will lead to all kinds of mythological, superstitious things unleashed in society, all kind of irrational beliefs, which will finally lead to fascism. Oh no, that doesn't work like that, I think. I don't think fascism comes because of that. Fascism doesn't come like that. It's irrationalism, irrational thought. Irrational belief is fascism. So, so here you will also find in Latour a critique of environmentalism, and this will help you, I know, in a lot of your other courses. So you guys are getting too many things out of one reading. I shouldn't allow this. But if you follow this approach to environmental problems, then it's not good for your career, maybe, It's good to understand. So there's a critique of ecological thought. Do you guys have aware of any critiques of environmental thought, ecological thought? Tell me one or two critiques. Sai, tell us.
I don't know. I just know कि अभी recently there's the किताब आया था उसका कोहे साइटो, so I don't think that's a critique of it, but it's only I just know ecological thought is dealing with that.
No, he's talking about degrowth Marxism. He's fighting for environmentalism.
No, but I mean that's what I'm saying. I don't know the critique of ecological thought. ये नहीं पता.
Ecology is also like the new orthodoxy, It is like the new opium of the masses. Don't you know this? Like you say, Marx apparently said, I don't know whether he actually said or not, that religion is the opium of the masses. Yes, sir, but
that's a long paragraph.
So I don't know whether he actually said it. But I saw people tell me he said this. Okay, similarly, ecology is not religion anymore, it's ecology which is the opium of the masses. What do you say to that? Do you think ecology, environmental consciousness is the new opium of the masses? What do you say?
Sir, it is really the opium of the masses, it is needed.
It's needed.
Opium is required. Yeah.
Very true, but why ecology? Why would you think of ecology as that opium? When I always have to apologize for any example I give, so I again apologize for this example I'm about to give. When I saw, again, Madam Dhulipuli talk about rights and gender, or when I see RSS saying homosexuals should be getting rights, then I think, okay, these are the new opiums, this is the new opium. Rights is opium of the masses now. Rights for homosexuals is the new opium of the masses. So Dhulipuli madam, Professor Dhulipuli maybe, appointed apparently by the RSS. Again, I don't know these things, I don't have evidence, don't ask me, I just heard these things. Left comrades tell me this, so you can ask them, you can check with them. They said she is appointed by the RSS. When she then parrots what looks like, for all practical intents and purposes, which seems to be a left-wing discourse on rights and gender, then I think, okay, gender is the opium of the masses. Rights is the opium of the masses. Everybody is talking about rights. Nobody opposes it. Ecology is something like that. Everybody is talking about environment. In fact, the companies, the corporations that are at the forefront of the destruction of forests and valleys and rivers, they are the ones who are funding all these environmental studies and ecological departments. And I think we'll soon have a chair in environmental studies funded by Jindal Steel.
In our department?
Right? So, right? Obama is talking about it, all the Davos is full of climate change. Davos, all the George Soros and everyone. Tesla, Elon Musk, electric vehicle. It's a big deal about electric vehicle. Don't you think electric vehicle is quintessential example of ecology being the opium of the masses? Because the electric vehicle is not even good for the environment.
Creates electronic waste.
Because the battery, it uses battery, solar, wind energy. Oh my God, it's so dangerous for the environment. The people are only saying, okay, wind is coming, fan is moving around. Oh, so nice. But that energy is stored in a battery. वो जो फैन दिख रहा है आपको ऊपर में, विंड मिल, नीचे में बैटरी है, बैटरी. अब बैटरी में क्या होता है? एक छोटा सा बैटरी घर में रिमोट कंट्रोल होता है ना, उसका बैटरी आप देखिए, इट्स पॉइजन. You are running an entire car. Do you know how big the batteries are in a car? नीचे में पूरा पार्ट है ना, अभी क्लास के बाद जाके देखिए बैटरी, बहुत सारा इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल्स होगा इधर. And the batteries will be disposed of, I think it has lithium or something. So, but you can't stop the electric vehicle, the EV revolution as they call it. Everybody is pushing it. Over environment. If you buy a car which is petrol or diesel versus if you buy an electric vehicle now, you are getting special discount in Delhi. If you buy electric vehicle, government gives you special subsidies. कि खरीदो, लो, लेके जाओ.
Sir, even the reusable rockets, is commercializing it, so more and more people will use it actually.
Yeah.
This is actually degrading.
Yeah. Take it, even the battery rickshaws. Battery rickshaws. I think there is one kind of electric rickshaw which I think is not harmful. But you have to see, because making battery, and of course China is taking the lead in the world, right, to make batteries. So the Tesla project of Elon Musk is directly tied to the production of batteries in China. China is the world's leader in solar energy. Solar energy means battery. So, and there's so many examples of ecology and environment. Everybody is like environmentalist, right? Everybody. There's like Delhi, though every day newspapers are giving you like stock market index, ecology ka AQI and all. You know, some of my friends are like addicted to it. Every day they're sending me updates. Delhi में AQI इतना है, ये है, वो है. Delhi is the most polluted. I said, look, I am fine with pollution. I have no problems with pollution. This is the new opium of the masses. Like giving me, आज चंडी पाठ है तो आज अमावस्या है तो आज पूर्णिमा है तो आज ये खा सकते हैं, आज ये नहीं खा सकते, नहीं करते धार्मिक लोग. हमारा चाचा मामा सब भेजते रहते हैं उस टाइप का. आज ये नहीं खा सकते, आज ये है, आज वो है. आज सोमवार के दिन आज हनुमान जी का है, कल इनका है, सॉरी सोमवार तो इनका है, शिव जी का. हाँ, आज शनिवार है, आज शनिदेव का है. इसी टाइप का भी ये एक न्यू ओपियम ऑफ द मासेस चल रहा है. Then you think of, what is that girl who crossed the Atlantic in that yacht? The Swedish girl, Greta Thunberg. So they say the Greta Thunberg, she took the Atlantic, she crossed the Atlantic using that solar powered something. But it seems the carbon or some energy footprint of that yacht she took is far greater than if she had taken a plane and gone to New York. That's how she went, no? To do the ecology thing there in the United Nations. She said, look, I did not even take a plane because that's not good for the environment. I crossed the ocean in this little boat. But her boat was not a simple boat. So the overall footprint was far more, because it had to be managed by 10-20 people, something. And there had to be like, I don't know, other support, helicopter flying over her to make sure she's fine in that. So overall, the kharcha was far more than, it's like Osho Rajni saying, you know, Gandhi's garibi was a very expensive one, very costly garibi, because to maintain him in that, you needed an entire ashram around him to take care of his needs, so that he can be this naked fakir, you know. Right? There's an entire paraphernalia of people around him doing everything for him so that he can move around without carrying anything like a fakir. So it's a big thing, right? Ecology today. All government policies, bureaucracy, everything is like about the green environment. Politics is on that. In the West, if you see, the political divide is on that. So if you're the right wing, means you will deny climate change. And if you deny climate change, then you can become a progressive. So in the West, you have all these people who are Bernie Sanders and all those left people, they are all like talking about environment. Green New Deal. So ecology is regarded as, ecology, so there's a critique of ecology in Bruno Latour. You will see it, you know. So with this essay then we will read the Mackandal thing about how in Mackandal also there is no nature culture division going on in the Maroon Republic. You can even call it spiritualization of nature and objects and things of the flora and fauna. Right? You can call it animistic practices. There are a choice of words. We talked about the Nagvanshis, a lot of the tribal practices in India. They are those kinds, no? They don't have those high gods like Indra and Shivji and all. You have the basic gods associated with the rocks and stones and mountains. Adivasis in India, they think of the mountains as a god. You have that kind of a spiritualization of nature. So is it that Mackandal, way back, is mobilizing that kind of a power in the rebellion, you know? So he doesn't need those discourse of rights and equality and liberty. You know, man is born free, but everywhere he's in chains from Rousseau and all that nonsense. No. What to do with that? The noble savage, nothing he needs. So there's an entire break with what do you want to call, like the modern consciousness. And I'm not trying to play it here as a critique of the West, by the way. A lot of people will tell you, oh, it's a critique of the Western paradigm. And we're not going in that direction. And for a very good reason. Because we are also going outside the domain of even say Brahminical consciousness then. No? It's not just about Western and Eastern. So Adivasi consciousness in India, what Ranajit Guha kind of is trying to capture in the elementary aspects of peasant insurgency. You know, it's kind of trying to capture. It's also outside of not just the West, but also the East Brahmin culture. So, if the Adivasi had understood British rule as, oh my God, if Adivasi were to say, oh my God, you see, look, the British have come, dharm ka raaj tha yahan, ab adharm aa gaya. If that's how they had understood it, then you could have said, okay, well, come on, that's Brahminical consciousness. Dharm, adharm. Pralay hoga, satyanas hoga. But Adivasis are not understanding it in terms of dharma and adharma. So they are not just challenging so-called Western, but also Brahminical. So we'll not go into that, East versus West. So it's not about, we're trying to critique Western paradigm and Mackandal as challenging the Western paradigm. Mackandal as challenging Orientalist construction of the East, of the other. No, we're not going there. And also that's why I think Latour is good. He also does not get into that, and he's not that kind of a radical. So, and that helps us well. Okay, so now there is one work, this PhD work by this Patricia Kate on Mackandal, which I think is there in the reading, where she has used, she's done this work on the Haitian revolution of this period, focusing on Mackandal, and she mobilizes Latouria. So you will see that it is already there in this PhD dissertation by her. And you should read there some sections. I will give you those sections, not all. You can read from the beginning, but there are particular pages in which she focuses on that. Okay, so you will read that. The third flank in this is now through all of this, we will kind of enter Marx. I mean, I'd have anyways done it, but this writer, this Patricia Kate, also does that. She, of course, does it in the sense that, there are a lot of studies when it comes to slavery. There's a lot of studies on slavery and capitalism. Right? Just as there are a lot of studies on colonialism and capitalism. So, for example, the classic debates within Marxism about whether capitalism or the formation of capital, the historic emergence of capital in Europe, in Britain, during the Industrial Revolution, was that even possible if there was no colonial surplus? Is it because they could extract surplus from the colonies and that surplus wealth fed into the expansion of capital in Europe? So some people might say that, well, if they were not to have colonies, if they could not extract the surplus from colonies, then capitalism would not have happened in Europe. I mean, there are also these counterfactual questions which scholars ask about why did the West take the lead? Why could not that kind of a capital accumulation and massive developments in technology, machinery, science take place, say, in China? Why was the West? Why didn't it take place in India? Okay, if not India and China, why not the Ottoman Empire? The Ottoman Empire is very powerful, right? So when Christopher Columbus goes and so-called discovers the Americas, the Ottomans were also kind of getting there. The Ottomans were in competition with the West. So why could not the Ottomans give us the notion of the universal global capitalism? Why was it located in the West? What was it about the West? So a lot of people say, well, there was something that was internal to Western society, the changes that was going on at the time, but without the colonial surplus, that was not possible. Now there is another set of scholars who will say, no, even without the colonial surplus, there was something which was internal to Western society, the class relations, the emergence of enclosures, the end of the commons and the emergence of private property as defined by John Locke. Those things were already taking place. And there was small artisanal production, small artisans, they kind of forming their own little unions, what is it called? Those artisans, they used to form those guilds, those guilds, and slowly production achieves a particular scale, economies of scale. So from what is called manufactories, you slowly go towards industrial production. So what was the kind of social changes? What was the kind of, how the social relations were changing? Or what was the process of displacement of people from land and the creation of the proletariat, what would eventually become the urban working class? As you know, it's a historical process which leads to the formation of the urban working class, because initially people don't want to leave the land. They don't want a job. They don't want to go to the cities. They are fine there. And they are forced, they are displaced, they are uprooted from their land. A process which is still going on, right? With people still in forests and villages. A lot of them are purposely, of course, they want to go and work in Dubai, they want to go and work in Bombay. But they still, say among the Adivasis, you still have people who don't want to get uprooted from the land, and they don't want to go, they don't want a job, they don't want education, they don't want modern hospital treatment, nothing, they're fine there. They might die early, but that's okay. So in Britain, as we know, there was this entire process where they forced people to join the ranks of the urban proletariat. Right? Around the period of the French Revolution, when this urban proletariat is very small, but it is happening, the breakdown of feudal relations, and they get freed from land, and then they migrate to the cities. This entire complex process, which took maybe 100, 200, 300 years, that leads to capitalism. So this other set of scholars will say, well, those changes that are internal to European society, that is what allowed the emergence of conditions that led to something called capital. How does capital emerge? Right? Because capital is not just a lot of money that a rich man has. Right? Capital has a particular character, which later then Marx will describe. So this debate, how does this relate here to what we are talking about? So you will see that these let's use a word called community. These communities, somehow still we think that these communities are stable, these communities are there, and then there is capital, which is trying to destroy those communities, capture the Jal Jangal Zameen, capture the land, right? So it's like community versus capital. So you have slaves being brought forcibly out of African communities. The slaves, the labor of slaves, which goes into capital, they come and colonize us, they destroy our communities. Vatsudip the Kaviraj would say our fuzzy communities were lost. And then they did the census and all kinds of things, and then the fuzzy communities became well demarcated communities, and finally at the end of it, we get Hindu-Muslim riots. All of that, So here in the figure of Mackandal, this writer tries to read it in that way. That what Mackandal does is that instead of colonialism doing all this to our communities, destroying our communities, converting them from fuzzy to well demarcated communities that then engage in violence with each other, instead of this kind of a narrative of destruction of communities and capital extracting surplus out of it, displacing people from land, here you have in Mackandal the resistance. How community and this spiritualized nature, and maybe also those kind of things where there is no distinction between humans and animals. That kind of a worldview, that kind of an animistic culture gets mobilized with great violence and ferocity and bravery by these slaves in the mountains, and they give such a tremendous they launch a tremendous attack against French slave capital in Haiti. They completely, France was like shaken by the rebellion in the 1750s. They poisoned the entire town, they killed the entire colonial population. And by the way, the news of this then travels to the US, and you will see how black communities, black slave populations, they respond to this news. It is like I don't know what is the parallel in our society today. I was thinking of, okay, this is Seinbach protest, and then there are, other Seinbachs supposed to come up, but this is so lame, right? This is, so this is resistance. So in a way, what you have in this way of reading Mackandal, mobilizing even Latour. So here you are reading Latour against Latour, right? So what Latour is saying as a critique of modern ecological thinking, as just a critique of Western Enlightenment paradigm, in the hands of what goes on in the Maroon republics, it assumes a very different form of resistance and the founding of the first Maroon Republic. I do not know whether it's the first, it could be the first. Because I know around this time or even before, in the this is 18th century, in the 17th century, Jamaica and that entire area, Venezuela, those entire areas, where there were a lot of indigenous Indian population, but also slaves were brought from Africa. There are a lot of these independent republics are being made. These kind of Maroon republics. Doing voodoo and all kinds of animistic practices. Animal sacrifice, human sacrifice is taking place. There. So the understanding of capital then. So in a way it means that you think of capital, so it's not like capital working class, but here capital community. But community in this sense. So if you take Sudipta Kaviraj's notion of fuzzy communities, they paint the fuzzy community as this very benign, innocent community. They don't know if someone is a Hindu or a Muslim, you can be Hindu and Muslim at the same time, or some other third thing, that kind of fluidity. So they are too much in this kind of a post-structuralist fluidity, right? You have some elements of that even here in Mackandal's community, but here it is also about the fight and the resistance. I mean, if you were to tell Sudipta Kaviraj, but some of your fuzzy communities, they organized themselves against British colonial power and they went and poisoned an entire city of British colonizers, you'll be appalled. You'll say, oh my God, how can my fuzzy community do this? It's a beautiful community. They can't kill. They're ahimsa people, non-violent people. Peace and love. But here, that's the thing. And that's also this about the black radical tradition. There's a lot of, even with Fano, revolutionary violence in Fano, as you know. So you have to deal with this. So then what is the relation of capital then to these kind of, what should we call it, community, this kind of assemblage. Let's also get fancy once in a while, assemblage. Use a French word for you, assemblage. Right? Assemblage also because nature, culture, human, animal, no sharp divisions. But that is not just to do a nice, harmonious bonhomie with nature, but that is to be able to organize the forces and attack. See, there's a difference. Just doing a nice bonhomie with this harmony and this everything is nice, everyone is nice, we love everyone loves us. That's not the thing here. Here, वो चढ़ाई करेंगे, चढ़ाई करेंगे. चढ़ाई करने वाला community है ये.
Someone like RRR, came with tigers to fight.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, like that. I haven't seen RRR, but yeah. Tigers will, you become like a tiger becomes like you. So, but also here there are also some people have thought of it in terms of algorithms, in terms of networks of data that also kind of, those are also lines of channels through which surplus accumulation takes place. So are these Adivasi communities, think of the Navi or something, So you have the modern guys with those spaceships and all that in the film, right? Avatar. And then you have these, what is that? That tree, their spirit, what is it called? Yeah, Yuva. So you are connected like that, no? But come on, it's not that, so it's not that there's capital and then there are those nice connected, networked assemblages. But capital itself is an assemblage. Capital is not just it doesn't just go and destroy that. It destroys that. But what are algorithms? What are these new prosumer economy? What are these new fluidities that capital itself produces? Right? So in that sense, it's not capital versus community. So the kind of assemblage, the fluidity that we are talking about here, capital eventually also incorporates that into its internal mechanism. But I think at this period, which is the 18th century, it does look like capital is very much an external top-down force rather than mobilizing horizontal relations, right? So this is, some of it is there. Okay, so the other thing is the debate on, so in that debate among a lot of Marxist kind of scholars about slavery's relation to capitalism, colonialism relations with capitalism, in that there's a lot of work on that. So even racism and capitalism, there's a lot of work. I mean, gender oppression is universally agreed to be the oldest among all oppressions. And not least because I think Friedrich Engels has said it somewhere, that this is the oldest of, if not gender oppression, the gender division is the oldest, apparently. Now, division itself need not be leading to patriarchy or oppression, that's a different debate. But gender division of labor is very old. Women will be there taking after the kids and all that, cooking and all, and the men will go and, oldest, apparently. But after that, when you come to racism and slavery, I don't know, even anti-Semitism is very old, but I think that comes with organized religion. With racism particularly, there's this big debate about whether it is the way capitalism emerged historically with slavery and the enslavement of black people, is that what gave rise to racism into this phenomenon which is there? So is it capitalism which gave rise to racism, or because there is already a racist kind of divide, a racist, racialized exploitation of labor, that it is this which gives rise to capitalism? So which means that racism is already there from before. So racism is there in the Ottoman Empire. Racism, Hapsis are bought and sold in the Greek period. It's there in Greek antiquity. Maybe it's there in the Roman republics, right? So some form of racism against blacks has always existed. Maybe the Mughals had black slaves, I don't know, right? Which then is mobilized by capital. Or is it that there was nothing specific against blacks, there was some kind of racist attitudes here and there, So, for example, in the case of the US, they say that, this kind of a discrimination faced by migrants was first, or not first, but earlier faced by the Irish, the Ireland, folks who came there, and the Italians. So if you watch a film like Godfather, right? So the Italians were also facing discrimination. You know, I think Australia, you had prostitutes and prisoners from Ireland were thrown there, in Australia. So Irish, they are white, but they are facing racism or whatever you want to call it, discrimination. So that's also something which is happening under capitalism, which cannot do without a colonial relation. This is an essay by Irfan Habib on this debate about why capitalism did not emerge in India, for example. Yeah. So then, of course, you have to look into the period from the 10th century, 11th century, 13th century, right up to the 15th century. Was there a possibility of merchant capital emerging here? You know, of capital emerging here. And why it did not emerge here? And why it emerged only in the West? So all of these things are related here. So there is this very famous book by Eric Williams called Slavery and Capitalism, Capitalism and Slavery. But there are a lot of such work. You know, like Indians were also taken, right, for this kind of labor. Yeah, Fiji, you know, Indians were taken to Fiji, to the Caribbeans. And you know why Indians were taken? When was Indians first taken for this kind of work? Huh?
18th century?
No.
No, sorry.
19th century.
19th century.
Because when they ended slavery, precisely these places where you have Mackandal and all, slavery ended. What do? You need new labor. So the British takes Indian labor all the way there. Indentured labor. Slavery has ended, so indentured labor. So now, of course, Indians are doing very well in those countries. They have also become presidents and prime ministers, right? In Jamaica, Guyana, Caribbeans, there's a lot of Indians there. There are tons of Indians.
There are these people who are called the Gilmitians.
That's the Fiji one.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're doing very well, no? In those countries now. So Fiji, of course. So Indians were taken there. And so they took them, they've apparently checked that they can work in the sugarcane plantations here in UP and Bihar, mostly from Bihar. They've taken there, and they're still there. They still do their chutney music and all. That's what they call. No? They did a hybrid of Indian culture, what they have preserved, and the local culture there. They make good music, by the way, you know. So because a lot of them have become like black people. Huh? Yeah. Sundar Popo, no? Yeah. So, like some of these Anurag Kashyap and all some of the Bollywood directors, I think they went there and they use some of that music in some of the Bollywood songs, you know. So it is this place where the Indians are taken, you know. Now, by the way, Gandhi apparently also did some work among the Indians there. And Indians did some very shady things at the time. They went to the British and they told them, oh, you know what, like these guys, the natives there, where you have taken us as indentured labor, they're really lower than us. So you will find it difficult to run your colony there. So you outsource a colony to us. We will run the colony there. Yeah, Indians are that bad, you know. Indians are the worst. They said, you outsource a colony to us. It is called, it's a famous plant, it's called some plant. Like Marshall Plan, no? Like that, like plant, you know. So Indians gave a plant.
So Gandhi was giving this idea?
No, those clever Indians out there. Because a lot of this, they got educated and all, they got some money. They try to like cheat those local people there. They made some money, they became very clever. Right? Indians are very clever, as you know. You know, I mean Indians and Pakistanis also. वो है ना कि एक बंदा है उधर 4-5 सिम कार्ड रखता है, पता नहीं क्या क्या धंधा कर रहा है, उस टाइप का बंदा सब, right? And then they came to Gandhi, but I think Gandhi apparently refused for some other reason though. This Andrews something is there, no? The guy who is written on Gandhi, close relation, close comrade of Gandhi. Andrews something, he's written a book also on Gandhi. C.F. Andrews, I think. C.F. Andrews. I think C.F. Andrews was doing the mediating between the Indians there, and because you know Gandhi, before coming to India, he is already working within the overseas Indians, like in South Africa. So Gandhi's perspective is global, right? What is Gandhi's perspective? Gandhi's perspective is global. He is from here, but he is not from here. He is working mostly on the diaspora, and then he is coming to India. So that kind of a thing. So read Latour and read this and combine it with CLR James on Mackandal and the Haitian Revolution. So those three should be enough.
What you were discussing about that primitive feeling of rebellion, or like there was one man, Baba Ramchandran. He was an indentured labor who came from Fiji, and in the early 20th century, खासकर जो ये यूपी का जो अवध का जो रीजन है, वहाँ पर जो पेजेंट रेबेलियन हो रहा था, बहुत कंसोलिडेटेड नहीं था वो, लेकिन वो अलग अलग डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स में छोटी छोटी जगहों पे हो रहा था. तो मतलब हेटी के रिलेटिवली नहीं, क्योंकि वो तो काफ़ी लेट हो रहा है, 1910, 1910, 1920s के अराउंड. तो क्या उसको भी हम एक प्रिमिटिव, मतलब वो उस फीलिंग को या वो जो एक आइडिया आ रहा है for that rebellion, उसको भी हम क्या प्रिमिटिव ही मानेंगे कि उसके अदर फैक्टर्स भी होंगे?
प्रिमिटिव तो हम किसी को भी नहीं मानेंगे, है ना. प्रिमिटिव तो मैंने ऐसे ही बोला यहाँ पे. तो प्रिमिटिव तो नहीं बोलेंगे, बल्कि जो इधर हुआ गांधी नेहरू वाला फ्रीडम मूवमेंट, उसको प्रिमिटिव कह सकते. वो प्रिमिटिव है, वो एडवांस्ड है. अब इस ढंग से सोचो फिर क्या निकलेगा उसमें.
क्योंकि उसमें जैसे कपिल कुमार जो है, ऑल्दो अभी तो उनका बहुत ओरिएंटेशन अलग है, लेकिन वो कहते हैं कि गांधी का जो इमेज क्रिएट किया गया, मतलब गांधी भी कोई इंटेंशनली अपना इमेज ऐसा नहीं क्रिएट किया, लेकिन गांधी का भी इमेज एक बड़ा रीजन था कि वहाँ के पेजेंट, खासकर जो इंडेंचर्ड लेबर बाहर से आए, एंड दे सॉ अ ह्यूज डिफरेंस इन द एटीट्यूड ऑफ द एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन टुवर्ड्स देमसेल्व्स. तो उसका भी एक बड़ा इम्पैक्ट उन पे पड़ रहा था.
That's true. That's true. That's true. कपिल कुमार ने ये कहाँ लिखा है?
ये पेजेंट इन रिवोल्ट उनका बुक है.
अच्छा.
78 का पब्लिश्ड है.
अच्छा.
मेरा एक काम था बैचलर्स, क्योंकि रायबरेली में जहाँ से हूँ वहाँ पर एक मैसेकर हुआ था, मुंशीगंज मैसेकर. तो उसमें मेरा कुछ काम थोड़ा मैंने किया था कोशिश.
कब हुआ था ये मैसेकर?
ये हुआ था 7 जनवरी 1921.
1921 चौरी चौरा के टाइम में.
हाँ, उसी के टाइम.
But that's the thing with this Haitian revolution, it happened so early.
हाँ, बहुत उससे तो
You know, Indians took a long time to get around to thinking that they should oppose, and here it's already so much going on here, and at so many layers. I mean, if you exclude the Adivasis were already in revolt much earlier.
Do you think
It was the mainstream Indians, the upper caste Muslim and upper caste Hindus. They were collaborating for the longest time. I don't think they ever wanted to get the British out of this country. And I sincerely believe this, They threw them out, they went against them when they thought, these people are actually not giving us our share. Only then they were forced to do the anti-colonial struggle. That's one. The second thing, connecting to what you were saying, what happened was these Indians, they go abroad and then they see, that you are treating us like blacks. Because Indians always thought, and they still think, that they are somehow superior. So they thought that what the British are doing to us is not that bad, even though it was bad. So when they went abroad and then they saw, but when they went abroad, they always made this claim that we are the subjects of empire. And they went arrogantly to other countries, saying, look, I am a British citizen. Indians did that. And then, so they did that when they went to that famous incident of Komagata Maru, that ship. You know of the Komagata Maru? The ship. Komagata Maru. There is also a film on that. Komagata Maru. It's a Komagata Maru. 1914. These Indians went, Sardarjis from Punjab. All the Sardars went, and Sardars were like they had fought under the British Army, they had fought in the First World War and some wars here and there. 1914 is too early, maybe First World War has not even taken place. So they have fought for the British, or they intended to fight. But they already had some certificates and all with them that they have fought for the British. So they got the certificates. We are loyal to British. No? British is our people. We are British ka people. So they boarded the ship. And you know where they went? Canada. This is the story of Sikh people's presence in Canada. So they went there and said, British told us we are the subjects of empire. Canada is part of the empire. Give us entry. Very right. Very correct analysis. Very good lawyers. Indians are very good lawyers. Canada said, yes, that is true. This is part of empire, and it's also true you are subjects of empire. And British has recognized you as subjects of empire. But you wait. So they were made to wait outside the land of Canada, outside I think British Columbia or Vancouver city, and they were made to wait in the waters on the ship for several months. And all the time they're pleading, we are your subjects, no? We are loyalists. We are not like others. And then they sent their lawyers inside. Of course, there was some of this bleeding heart white guys, whiteys, they became lawyers, they became proponents. Like BBC becoming, doing the thing against Modi for the Indian liberals. BBC will make a documentary against Modi, right? So those documents, if you study, and there are a lot of research work on this. Komagata Maru, it's a big thing. So in fact, the entire discourse on migration now, immigration, migrant rights, citizenship, this is a fundamental debate till today. And Indians finally went to the extent of claiming that we are whites only. It's hilarious. Look at the documents of the time. I did this other piece called Parasitic Anti-Colonialism, in that, which has Slavoj Žižek essay also. Europe, Refugees and the Left, that text. Have you seen that? Parasitic, I've done a piece. refer to the Komagata Maru in that. Because anti-colonialism, how does, तुम जो बोल रहे थे ना, how does Indians finally agree to go against colonialism, be anti-colonial? It is when they get rejected in these kind of instances like Komagata Maru, where they wanted to be accepted by the whites as loyal subjects, and when the whites reject them again and again, they were forced to fight against them. Indians had no intention of going against colonialism. Shashi Tharoor might go and stand in Oxford and really, show his vicious attack against colonialism, but those are all fake. Indians never wanted to, because they thought they will be fellow travelers of colonialism, Not that they wanted to be colonized, but they thought they will team up with the British and colonize everybody else. That is the Indian Brahmin mind, I have to give it to them, including the Muslim elite, by the way. So these people made claims that, this is actually written documents mein hai bhai ye. They made claims that we are not like the native Indians in Canada. Sorry, I think you are making a mistake. Even this claim they made. Because they said, we know what you are doing to the native Indians in Canada, but I think you are mistaking us for them. We are superior people, we are superior race. We are like white people. This is the claim they made. But of course, this is not just Indians. The Japanese and the Chinese, not maybe the Chinese, the Japanese, there was a similar law which came around that time. Because Japan was a very fledgling power at the time, don't forget, right? And that's why eventually you have in the Second World War, Japan siding with Hitler. It's a major imperial force. So Japanese also, same thing. We are like white people. We are superior people. We are people with a civilization. We are people with a language older than yours. They won't say that. They will say, they will not try to displease the master in any way. But they actually said this. So in my essay where I was claiming that anti-colonialism outside the black African tradition has largely been, or outside the Adivasi, has largely been pretentious and fake. It's a fake discourse, decolonization. So hence I titled it Parasitic Anti-Colonialism. It's a anti-colonialism which is parasitic on capital. It just is seeking a place in the seat of empire. So for me, as you can imagine, it was very important to mention Komagata Maru. And the differentiation that Indians were making, from the other, like Native Americans or blacks. And one is not even going to the way Gandhi theorized the relation between Indians and blacks in South Africa. That was also extremely interesting, right? So with India, it gets very complicated. I think that's why the Adivasi thing got suppressed in India. And even though Ranajit Guha wrote this, but Ranajit Guha also what it did was, he thought of the Adivasi thing only in terms of challenging the West, because a lot of these kind of social scientists are obsessed about critiquing the West. So they, I think, instrumentally used Adivasis to add on to their own critique of the West. So I think the investigation into the actual forms of resistance by Adivasis done by Ranajit Guha is very sincere and amazing, but what he used it for, to build the post-colonial critique, I think that was, quite dishonest. But I think he's done an amazing investigation, into the actual forms of resistance. It's absolutely stunning. So Mackandal opens up all of this for us, way back 200, 300 years ago. Then we will do this, read this with Bruno Latour. Is a very, very important thinker today. And with Bruno Latour, for you, so you have Mackandal, Bruno Latour, but we are also then entering into this today's scene, where theorists are talking about object-oriented ontology, where with the rise of sentient non-human objects, we can no longer think of agency as only vested in the human, right? So what Foucault, for example, is talking about in those essays of Panopticon and Quarantine and all of that, that has become even more generalized, with the sentient kind of a status that the object world has achieved more and more in today's capitalism. So in a way, you are talking about the past, you are talking about, or say when we talked about the Nagvanshis, we are talking about the ancient past, and yet, in this sense, it's extremely contemporary. That kind of a notion of assemblage, that kind of a notion of the human, non-human assemblage that you have in today's theories about object-oriented ontology seems already anticipated by these kind of either the way the Nagvanshis relate or what's happening in the Maroon republics, So then the last point about the relation between the past and the present. Right? So the past and the present, what is the relation between the two? Is it that the past is past in terms of in a linear historical sense, that okay, we are talking about something which happened 500 years ago, something happened 600 years ago, 200 years ago, or is the past something which is just like stuck to the skin of the present, So you just scratch a bit and then the past is right there. So in terms of topology, you see, you have to get used to some of these terms, like using topology. So topologically you might say it's right there. They say about India, it's crashed the cities and it's full of villages. There are no real cities here. Modernity is very thin. It's right there. 2000 years ago, things are right there. So we are very modern and all, and then I prove to you, you guys all don't get shocked by the pictures of Goddess Kali. You guys are all very primitive. What does this mean? That means the present is right here, as the past is right here. So the past then has to be put in under quotes. Right? It's right here. So it's not like you have to go back linearly 500 years ago to go to the past. It's right here. So when Ambedkar converts to Buddhism, Buddha, who happened 2,500 years ago, is right here. Right? So it's a skin. It's like a what is the skin doctors called? Dermatologist or something, no? It's like dermicidal notion of time. I don't know whether there is such a word, dermicidal, right? It's a dermicidal notion of time that we are looking at here. So, okay, so whatever class I do with you in the next thing, we'll just fill up this. So we'll start with Latour in the next class, So we'll do Latour and then we'll come to this guy and then maybe, that's it, maybe, So we'll just do this.
So you were saying some reading on Indian context also, though?
Indian context. Indian context. Ambedkar's thing is good, who are the Shudras, there's references to now. India we don't have, apart from maybe Ranajit Guha, but we don't have that I mean, there's a lot of literature on this, but we don't have like, a proper one. It's yet to be written. Maybe some of you should do that in future. Maybe we should all do that. We don't have that kind of thing, it's a, so, but Phule, Jyotirao Phule is good. Yeah. And so this, and I will also use that Bhima Koregaon essay because that ties them all together. I have referred to Mackandal, and when I was referring to Mackandal in that essay, and the title of the essay is, again, you see, talking about the past and the present. It's titled Bhima Koregaon and the Powers of the Other Shore. It's partly inspired by this work by Jacques Rancière. Do you know Jacques Rancière, this French philosopher? It's very interesting, Rancière. You guys should kind of get used to this. Jacques Rancière, amazing. Jacques Rancière. So, Rancière has a book called On the Shores of Politics. On the shores, politics on the shore. So, it is a thing from there. So, but with this Bhima Koregaon or this kind of a notion, you have, it's the other shore. So, Bhima Koregaon and the powers of the other shore. And the power is important here. Powers of the other shore. Because it's also mobilizing the entire assemblage in a war of resistance, right? But we can't even call it war of resistance because we do not know. That is the thing, we've got to be careful, We do not know what were the categories they had in mind. Maybe they were not thinking in terms of wars of resistance. Maybe they were thinking of killing the devil. So, mobilizing the assemblage to kill the devil. So, I have just corrected myself. To kill the devil.
I was reading somewhere, so the slides I they were just exacting what they had suffered. So it was kind of, I don't know, vengeance or something, but it was just exacting the suffering onto the other.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
kind of a thing. So whatever they suffered, they wanted to
Yeah.
put on the other one. What people who were imposing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that is.
Because when they thought was the devil, sometimes in some evidences that I have seen where they thought that we have made some, our gods have got angry and the gods have sent these people to punish us. That's what the Aztecs thought. The Aztecs, the Mayan civilization people, because they'd say that we had seen prophecies,
Even Mackandal for that matter used to say that.
Who?
Mackandal only.
Okay.
So I don't know, I was reading somewhere that he was used to say that he had supernatural powers, that he was kind of like a prophet.
Yeah, prophet, yeah. Yeah, prophet, that prophecy is very important in all of this.
So even in India, there is this new book that I came across, it's called The Political Life of Memory.
Yeah.
There, the guy, the researcher tried to understand Birsa Munda's role. Birsa Munda, when he tried to agitate against the British, his role was also seen as something, as something metaphysical and something spiritual.
Exactly.
They say he was that they say that he was executed by putting him on fire.
Yeah. So put this political life of memory also in our reading list.
It's by Rahul Ranjan.
Oh, that settlement.
So,
the depiction of Birsa Munda, that there is also a thread at times in
Yeah.
his body. How did that thread come?
yeah.
Maybe
Yeah. So prophecy is very important. They know that, but don't again, we all do this, by the way. Just as I proved you guys primitive consciousness with what is Kali. We all do this prophecy, by the way. When you fail in exam, no, you knew, yeah, I knew I will fail. पहले से पता था. You say this, come on, man, you know. That is the thing, you know, that is the assembly. That is the simultaneity of the past and the present, simultaneity of different frames of reference. It's not, it's just that the kind of social science and thinking we do, no? Do a particular type, and when we remind ourselves of all of these living examples among us, then we say, oh yeah, that's true. But we can't say it, we can't talk about it like that, you know. There's this disciplining of our minds. So the prophecies are always there, you know. You always knew it's going to happen.
I think there was some kind of instrumentality to the supernatural also,
Yeah.
in the sense that to help the mobilization.
Yeah.
So, because there was supernatural attached to it, there was some kind of invincibility also attached to it. So people were mobilized more in that way. They had more faith in that.
Yeah.
So
Gandhi also used this kind of supernatural thing to mobilize Indian people.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, okay, let's keep it here then. So do these readings.
So what is this?
I will send, I think I'll email all of it, 1, 2, 3, 4 करके इसको मैं email कर दूँगा, सलोनी को, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 करके, because it's for everyone, so, and I guess a lot of students are not even coming to class. So internal assessments are going on, right? So I can understand. So when should we have the next class? If you guys are too busy with the internal assessment, then we just,
on Friday.
Friday we can have.
Yeah.
When is your next internal assessment?
It'll get over by Thursday.
23rd.
Huh?
It will get over by 23rd.
Thursday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday it will get over. But I want you guys to read, so let's have a class next week.
Yeah, because we have a test on Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll have a class next week, Monday. Right? Next week, Monday. You get a lot of time to read. Read and process and absorb. You know. So read. I don't have much lectures with you guys. I mean, I'll do just, if I do, I'll just one more. That's all. Yeah, so.
readings to 4-5 दिए और class एक
So we have to do Hegel and Haiti. We have to do this.
Yeah, this Hegel and Haiti I wanted to do with you guys. But I knew the kind of schedule you guys are handling, you won't be able to do at this stage. It's very dense. It takes a lot of work. You have to be free from everything else and do just Hegel and Haiti.
April, I think.
Yeah, later maybe.
We can do it. April.
Hegel and Haiti is a lot of task. But this will help us to kind of lay the ground. Because this we are going to the actual empirics. Without empirics, if you just do thought, you will just do this in that stupid way. You think you have understood, but you haven't. I'm not interested in doing that, you know. Just, you'll feel great, of course. Big concepts will be there. But there's no point. So you've got to engage with the empirics. Read historical accounts, please. Like good old history, you know. About the JNU history, a lot of people used to say, and we used to have this joke even back then, that if you ask a JNU ka historian, I don't know what kind of historian you have now there, but those fancy academic, you know, post-colonial historians there, like they wouldn't know any dates, you know. Like some sense you should have, no? When was Jahangir? When was Akbar? They only used to do debates. There was a course called Cap Call, they used to call it. Niladri Bhattacharya, you know. Capitalism, colonialism. And only debates of this kind that I told you a little bit today, no? Was colonialism really necessary or not? All of debates. So they were so distant from like good old empirical history, you know. This king came and that king came and that the dynasty perished. You know, so they wouldn't know which came, the Khilji came first or the Kutubuddin Aibak came first. Thoda to you got to know. Then you think, no, that's only civils guys are doing. We are, of course, very superior beings. We don't do that. But I think you need empirics, you need to know some sense of, you know, dates and all. So read those kind of simple texts. Discovery of India by Nehru, I would recommend that. Why not? You know, that broad sweep, that kind of clarity. This happened, this came, Maurya, this, that. Somnath temple, when was it built? This larger, this thing. So you need to. So for this, I think it's good that we are doing this little bit. What influenced Hegel? You know, this is that. Before just going into Hegel. There are at this time, the French are there, they are writing a lot on these incidents. So there are a lot of eyewitness accounts of this 1750s.
There's letters between.
Yeah. So this is a highly literate time, by the way. Don't think it's like good old kuch nahi tha. You know, ऐसा नहीं है. सब accounts है इसका. So when Mackandal is, I think finally he is executed, I think. He's hanged or something in public. Burnt. Yeah, I think he's burnt. He's burnt alive.
But they say he escaped some supernatural.
Yeah, that's the thing. There is also the powers of the other shore in that essay I put, you know. Because they said that, look, you know, the slaves are refusing to believe that he was burnt there. And of course, you don't want to believe that, right? You don't want to accept that your hero was burnt. No, you have to say, no, you couldn't burn him. That's not superstition. Is that a superstition? No. No, it is like the right thing to do. Forget about belief or truth, you know. Don't get into that thing. You just, that's the right thing to do. Yes, they couldn't burn him. He on his own chose to escape. That means he's around, he's here. That is the other shore. He's killing. What is martyrdom? No, that's being a martyr. Means that they could not kill him. British could not kill Bhagat Singh. They couldn't kill him. Now you wouldn't say, no, sir, he was actually killed, his body was found. Don't do that, you know. You got to be mature. Don't do that.
Sai Baba ka bhi yahi bolte, he already predicted that he will die on this particular day. And then when he died like 13, 14 years before that predicted date, then his successor said ki actually wo years main pe transfer ho gaye the.
Satya Sai Baba you're talking about.
Yeah.
You see, you got to be careful when you talk about Sai Baba. One, your name is Sai. Okay, then there is another prisoner Sai Baba. Then there is Shirdika Sai Baba. Then there is Satya Sai Baba.
They the one with the afro, no?
Yeah.
So also, sir, Subhash Chandra Bose, when it was said that he died in that plane crash, many people were not believing that he died. There is also this opium theory that many ecology people have come up with, that he never died and he also reincarnated in some other forms. And he also went to KGF and KGB and he had talks with them, and he also was roaming the northern region.
They show some pictures also.
Yeah,
Maybe that is slightly different because, you know, sometimes you can escape an accident. So
it can be true.
Yeah. So that other dimension is there, no? So this is the other dimension. You know, with the case of these Babas, it's maybe slightly different. But they all claim to do that. They do Dehatyag and, you know, but that is there in the Indian tradition, by the way. Buddha and all. Buddha, I don't think he died. I mean, he went into Samadhi.
Same with Osho. What they say about him, never born, never died.
But I say that, you know, nobody dies, everybody goes into Samadhi. That is the way to deal with this. Instead of saying, no, they are lying, they are trying to cheat people, they are spreading supernatural, superstitions. Everybody, like somebody dies, of course the person lives on in the memory and all that, no? It's just that. With a bigger person, maybe the memory is bigger. You know, you just go into Samadhi, you just live forever. And it is there. It is there in Heidegger, It is there in a lot of these other modern philosophers also. You just don't. Death and immortality, no? Death, yeah, death is immortality. So these are there. So these are just the different dimensions. So when Mackandal then is, so you can imagine, he is being burnt alive and all his followers are there. So they don't want to go home depressed thinking, oh, jala diya yaar, hamara neta ko nahi. They will say, kahan hai log British ko, hum khatam karenge inko. Jala nahi hai, wo to ab jinda hua hai, inko dikhate hain tamasa. Right? That's natural, no? That's what you will say. What you will say? Oh, yes, they finished him. Now let's just go home and do slavery now. Nobody does that. Now suddenly you will pick it up and say, oh my God, look, those who are superstitious people, they thought they did not burn him even though he burnt in front of them. That is stupid. Don't do that kind of stupid rationality. A lot of progressive people, they want to do that. What an irony. And that's the thing, that's also what triggered me to write that essay, because Anand Teltumde was giving this kind of an argument. That this Mahar soldiers defeating the Peshwai, maybe it's actually mythological, we do not have evidence. That's the kind of essay he had written. And it's such an irony, he gets arrested in that case again. And he used that in court. He went to court and he said, look, I was not even supportive of this Bhima Koregaon because I wrote an article against it. He said we are getting into myth and superstition and all, we should all believe in rational history. But that is such a, superficial take, because everywhere there's mythology, mythologizing, and that's, so you should not contrast, truth with mythology. They all go together, no? They all go together. Otherwise, every year, the big Mela takes place in that village where Dalits celebrate. Phule used to go there, Ambedkar used to go there. You are like, then just, okay, you can insult someone, that's okay, but do you really want to do that? Are you saying that all the Dalits who gather there, because your rational history does not have the evidence of the Mahar soldiers? Do you want to say that they should close down the Mela there, which is happening since you don't know 50, 60, 100 years? So those are all connected here. So when you say Bhima Koregaon, don't just think about the arrests. The Bhima Koregaon as in that event where a figure like Mackandal, that's why you will see in that essay, I put Mackandal alongside Sidnak, the warrior, whom the Mahars today think was the great warrior, who led the Mahars against the Peshwai, the Brahminical rulers. So now whether or not Mahar Sidnak was actually there, that's the where he is getting stuck, Anand Teltumde. He is himself apparently the grandson-in-law or something of Ambedkar. Maybe he is himself Mahar. He is a Dalit scholar. And I was also told that in the Marathi vernacular press, they really did not like his essay, in the vernacular, this thing. They thought that, he's just doing grandstanding, presenting everyone, as having lesser consciousness or something, that he only knows the distinction between what is rational history and what is mythological history, So he, it was not received well either, this thing. So that thing that Mackandal was burnt, but he flee from the place as a fly or something. That is, I think, the thing, So engage with it. So get done with your other engagements. So next Monday, we will have the class. Okay. See this. And we've got a recording. So we will follow this framework which has come there.